Hello from Southern California. This is the DealershipNews.com podcast, where we bring you the new and old school insight into the business of selling cars and service so you have the foresight to grow your dealership and stay ahead of the competition. I'm Kelly Kleinman, and here is our show. Hello, everybody. This is our first podcast of 2020, and today it's all about email. Perhaps the best vertical B2B that email works well within when it's done right would be automotive car dealerships specifically. Here to break it down for us is Jim Lawrence, the founder of DealerEFX, FX, we'll call it.
EFX.
Longtime auto marketing guy. He's got an MBA from Case Western Reserve. That's from my hometown, Cleveland. James, thanks for taking time out with us.
Oh, well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
We'd love to have you here. First, I do this with everybody. So if you would imagine you're on an elevator with just yet another auto group that you're working with, what would your 30-second elevator pitch sound like?
Well, if it's the dealer, I'm basically saying that, look, if you're concerned about your brand and where you're merchandising your vehicles through your website and through all the costly leads that you're purchasing, we can help alleviate some of the poor quality lead responses that your salespeople are sending out by simply allowing us to take over that effort, design compliant, beautiful, year, make, model specific content so that every one of your salespeople presents your brand in the manner you deem most appropriate and with the tone and message that you want to share with your prospects.
You know, we did a study some time ago, I want to say it was 2 years ago, and that study dealt a lot with lead response. And the emails that we were getting after we would fill out a lead form were devastatingly pathetic. You didn't even know, you would forget who you had emailed. It was mind-numbing. I could imagine how much bleeding of business there is.
Oh my gosh. When you think about the fact that that prospect is probably talking to 2 or 3 other dealerships in your region, you're just lost in the noise. I wrote an article recently where essentially I compared one of the most recent mystery shops we performed with one of the first email blasts from like 1978 from Digital Equipment Corp. I got to tell you, there was very little difference in the two. So what you're seeing out there, frankly, and this is across about 90% or better of dealerships, is this lead response quality that adversely affects their brand. Number one, it's not presented in many cases at all. In other cases, I can tell you around 70% or better, they never answer the question that is submitted with the lead on their own website. This isn't just third-party leads. This is their own high-value leads generated from their own website. So you've got some process challenges, you've got quality challenges, you've got compliance issues. I can tell you that from our own experience, again, over 1,000 mystery shops, approximately 17%, a little bit better, of the quotes that we receive have literally no disclaimer language. So what that means to you, Mr. Dealer, is the fact that your liability profile, your risk profile, is in fact increasing because your own salespeople are providing information that is has certain qualifiers for each and every prospect, and they're not providing the disclaimer language to protect your group from, let's say, California-based law firms that are looking to make a score on people's bad process and poor content.
Yeah, I understand that. Now, some folks don't realize that a truly comprehensive email program is not a one and done. So what are some of the components of what you would consider a truly successful email campaign?
Well, you know, in the vast majority of cases that we come across, when we say email, people think of their drip marketing campaign, post initial contact, right? And so what you have is this coin where only one side is actually addressed, whereas the first side of that coin, they're in fact first contact. And if you can imagine, you only have one chance at a good first impression. The first contact coming from dealerships is generally terrible in terms of their own branding, likely non-compliant with the OEM. I mean, the series of problems that go on with each and every contact that's going on out there with that first, with the lead that's brought by that prospect. You've got a situation where an entire side of that process is ignored. And so what my company focuses on is creating that first step of building a positive experience with that prospect, and then supporting the further steps, generally email communications, across not only that first, hey, let's have an engagement, let's have a conversation, then let's set an appointment, and that's where the rubber meets the road. And so after or during or as that process goes through its steps, you want to continue to present your brand, the vehicle in question, to that prospect, so that they are reminded of the beauty of the vehicle, the information you're presenting, all of those reasons that would help differentiate you from the guy up the street who's sending text-based, not answering questions, not providing the tone or message that you're hoping to express with that prospect, to build that experience that truly becomes engaging and relevant to them. So in answer to your question, you need to start off with a good first contact. Express yourself in the manner you deem most appropriate for your message and brands, and then continue on with, again, your branding when you touch them, the ongoing touch points with that prospect, because it's going to take at least 12, at least on average 12 touch points to get them moving and responding and engaging with you. Then it might be a phone call, it might be another email, and likely another email, and then of course the variety of other communications channels, the multi-channel marketing that goes on every day. So it's a way, DealerEFX is a way for you to plug that first gap and then continue on with professionally designed content that expresses your messaging and branding in the manner you wish, and frankly is completely out of control right now. I can show you stuff that would curl your hair.
We could talk about that. That's actually interesting to me. So that's sort of the front end stuff. Let's design something that appeals to a consumer. You want them to take the hook with some creative or a bright subject line, a terrific offer. So once that, and we'll get in a couple other questions here that deal more with certain numbers, but I want to know what some of the key analytics are when a BDC director or marketing team is assessing the efficacy of an email campaign. It's click-through, right?
Sure.
That's really, is that the prime analytic, or there's so many more?
There are, I'd say there are a variety, and that would be a standard approach, and is generally you're going on attribution of the last click, right? So within a lot of within all of our templates, and generally speaking, what dealerships would like to see are a variety of calls to action that are trackable and attributable. So one of the things that we always do is UTM tag all of the calls to action, so that if you're actually worried about your analytics, which they should bloody well be, then they have a whole new source of data that they had no access to before. Because I can tell you that your average, and I'm using air quotes here, and I think you can see that, your average sales director or salesperson isn't spending the time to deal with the HTML, the UTM tagging that would help them with their own analytics. So we're trying to provide an out-of-the-box solution to a significant problem across that whole experience for the prospect. So I guess the short answer is there should be engagement, there should be an increase in overall responses, and with that, the ability to have conversations that lead to appointments. And that's where the rubber meets the road. Your own close rate is going to change, make that, part of your sales process.
Sure. Well, what is an acceptable click-through rate?
So that's a good question. I mean, it depends. It depends on the nature of the email being sent. So you would expect that if a prospect has dropped a lead form on your own website or purchased generated a third-party lead, then the click-through rates or the response rate should be significantly higher. And this is actually, there is a difference between those emails that have answered the question that was originally dropped with the lead. And I can tell you again, huge numbers simply ignore the question and never answer the question and just go straight for, hey, come in for the test drive thing. So that's kind of like, if you're talking a percentage rate, you want to increase, you can increase maybe your existing today's response rate by another 3 or 4 percentage points, possibly doubling, increasing it by 100%, using percentages here. If you can build an engagement process in your email response quality, then that's going to increase the overall response rates on the front end. Now on the back end, talking about drip marketing and ongoing, sort of loyalty programs and things of that sort, we're really not going to see much of an increase or decrease for that matter, much of an increase in terms of response rates, because that's kind of the ongoing touch points that occur throughout the life cycle of that relationship. So what you're going to see from our perspective is an increase in the initial response rates, which is the engagement, the reflection of engagement that we present.
Mm-hmm.
But again, you're not going to see too much of a bump in terms of that overall ongoing drip marketing campaign that you already have in place, right? A lot of the MSP, the marketing service providers, are already doing that kind of thing. So they're inundating their prospects with that, and that's going to pretty much be flat to bumpy.
Yeah. How automated do you guys get? And is an automated response what the consumer wants?
In terms of automation, we automate our deployment process as much as humanly possible, because my cost structure is essentially based on design time. Warm bodies are creating this content, right? And so we create the content, and as quickly as we can, we deploy that into the CRM system. There's no new software, by the way. Frankly, we don't ask the dealership to change sales processes. We're simply giving them an immediate increase in the quality of their email responses without asking them to change anything, which if you've seen some of the other, let's say, industry pundits that are out there talking about digital retailing, they all pretty much agree that digital retailing won't be effective until you change your sales process, Mr. Dealer. So we're looking at this as a way to enable a much more professional approach without altering the sales process. That's a little less scary than somebody walking in and saying, hey, I can help do essentially a faceless, never meet, close the deal without ever walking on the lot type of program, which frankly, I think everybody wants a test drive. It's going to, I guess, be yet another channel, right? And yet another way of speaking to their prospects who wish to experience that approach to a sale. So go ahead.
Well, you have to have a good email program or a good Twitter, good presence on social media. You need to stay in touch with people. How effective are coupon, that brings to mind the question of how effective are coupon and loyalty programs these days? And are you seeing that you use a lot of those when you deploy your email?
Well, as a matter of fact, part of the service is that we review the dealership's website on a weekly basis. And what we see in terms of fixed operation specials, let's say OEM incentives that might have changed or been updated on the website, we take those designs and change them up because of our formatting requires it. But essentially, we help reinforce that couponing, if you will, from their own website within all of our templates for our pro version. So that way your average marketing director doesn't have to stop what he or she are doing, call us on the phone, say, I need something that reflects our latest OEM incentive, or I need something that reflects our latest lube oil and filter change. Essentially, we just take it from their website, plug it into what we're terming, frankly, now as kind of an advertising platform, so that literally every touch point expressed or experienced from an email standpoint includes a call to action to say, hey, we know you own a car, why not use our service base, right? I mean, at the end of the day, if the car you're trying to trade in here still needs a lube oil and filter change, why not go into the dealership and take advantage of that moment and take a look at the cars while you're waiting for your car to be finished? Things like that are incorporated into our templates, so that the couponing that you just referenced is more effective, because it's exactly what they may have seen on the website, and now they're seeing it in the email, and then they click it. Now that drives them to the page on the website. So what we're trying to do is drive them back to the couponing, making it that much more effective, because you're having essentially 100% of your new prospects seeing all of the services that you're currently providing at a discount, or possibly the incentives, as I mentioned.
Is there a dealership out there that doesn't use email?
I can't imagine there are. We've done probably thousands of mystery shops now, and they're all using email. The only place I see email being an issue, we've done some global research, is Russia, of all places, right? So Russians never respond to email mystery shops. They always demand a phone number, and then they'll follow up. Europeans are pretty cool about that. The Australians are pretty cool about that. Even New Zealand, and South Africa, they're big on email as well, Nissan in particular. So it's an interesting experience because there's a lot of WhatsApp going on in Asia and Brazil and things like that, where we simply don't add much value in terms of that communications channel.
Yeah.
But what we're seeing, strangely enough, is that for business to business, and for business to consumer, because of email's inherent opt-in nature of it, we're seeing that because of the GDPR in Europe and because of the California Privacy Act, right? That they're essentially, email is naturally opt-in. You don't have to express, because they're dropping a lead. They want information. Provide the information. You now have established some form of communications bridge, and now you can move forward. Now, on social media, if you've captured, let's say, information from Facebook and the other things, you're now going to have to ask them, or that prospect in California can go to your dealership and say, hey, remove me from your roles. Don't have anybody use my data for anything other than the initial contact or the initial communications through social media. In that respect, email is the same, but email is easier to manage than that. Frankly, there is no, as far as I know, there's only one company that's come out in California at this point to manage that request to be removed as a potential data point to be sold to somebody else. So it's interesting. So I see a lot of trends in terms of consumer behavior in relation to what you can actually do to communicate with them, that are making email even stronger today than it was 5 years ago, because privacy is becoming a real wave of pressure that's going to hit dealers in particular, because they're all about data, right? Capture the data, get the price on their vehicle, get all those data points that are captured in your average deal packet is huge and very sensitive. So with the California version of the GDPR and the GDPR itself, email has become even more important in terms of the communications chain.
All good points, Jim. I appreciate you checking in with us.
No, thank you. I really appreciate you spending time with me today. It's been a real pleasure. Thank you.
A fellow Ohioan, although you're in California now, right? You're here.
Oh, no, I'm actually in Portland, Oregon.
Oh.
Yeah. So, all kinds of fun.
Bigfoot country.
Hey, that's it. Nice.
Up there. Well, thank you very much, and we'll be in touch with you. Okay. And again, thanks so much for coming by. Have a great 2020, and that's it. This is Kelly, Dealership News. That's Jim Lawrence, DealerEFX. Do we call it DealerFX? Is that good?
I can live with that.
You can live with it? All right, yeah. Good.